Which data plan on Starlink is right for your RVing or boating travels?
It's important to consider all the different trade-offs between the data plans because they are significant.
Hi there, I'm Cherie,
And I'm Chris.
and we're the founders of the Mobile Internet Resource Center, where we are focused on helping RVers and boaters find their right mobile internet solution. And of course, Starlink is a popular option that a lot of us use in our travels. Now, this video is part of a three-part series. First part went over what Starlink is and the pros and cons. So go watch that video first. This video will go over the data plans, and we have another video that is going over the equipment choices. So when selecting your data plans, it's first important to realize that all the data plans are dealing with a set of variables. The first set is where you can use your data. So there are plans that are specified for fixed locations where you have to actually physically change your service address in order to get service where you are. There are mobile plans that allow you to move your dish wherever you want, and the service just moves with you. There's also a distinction between land use, coastal waters, and ocean use. And then there is your home country versus international travels.
Now, the other thing to compare with between the plans is the priority that these plans have on the network. So SpaceX has basically three priority levels that they apply to their plans. There is the best effort service, which is what they go to the mobile plans. It is the lowest priority in the network, which means you are much more subject to congestion. There is the standard tier of service, which is basically what typical residential customers get. And then there is priority service, which is what Starlink is catering to for oceanic users and for businesses and for anybody else who feels like they need to have a priority on Starlink's network. You can opt in to priority levels, but you're paying per gigabyte as opposed to unlimited data when you are at the priority network level.
All right, the data plans. Let's first start with fixed location plans. These plans are specifically for people who are using their Starlink service at a fixed location, like a house or a business. Now, the first one is the residential plan. This one is $120 per month, and it is unlimited data. There are no restrictions on it at present time. And this is all at standard priority level. So this means you're getting kind of the standard level of service. Yeah. It's that middle tier. And, you do have to use it at your registered service address. However, it's really super easy to change your service address as you move about. So if you are moving locations, whether that's in an RV or a boat, in order to get service, you have to actually connect to Starlink and go and change your service address. And it usually takes about 10 or 15 minutes. This plan also can only be used in your home country, so there's no international use on it. There's also no in-motion use. So why are we mentioning this plan? It doesn't sound like it's overly mobile friendly, but because you can change the service address, this plan is actually significantly cheaper than the roam and mobile options that we're going to be covering later. And it is pretty flexible. It is still portable. You can still change locations if you're okay with having to physically change your service address and wait that 10 or 15 minutes for Starlink to re-service address. So this is great for seasonal travelers or people who just don't need it immediately on when they pull into their next location.
And you could even have your address be someplace in the middle of nowhere just by dragging your dot on Starlink's map. So even if you're in a remote anchorage, you just drag your dot and you have an address.
Now there's also a business version of this plan called Priority, and this is basically giving you that highest level of service of priority data. It's going to get faster speeds. You're going to be above the congestion. They do have a plan that starts at $140 a month, which is just a little bit more expensive than the residential plan. However, that includes 40 gigabytes of priority data. So if you need like a Zoom call or a very important mission, this is a great plan that you might want to consider because you can opt in to additional priority data for just 50 cents per gigabyte. So it is an option that we recommend some consider if they really need the highest level of service occasionally.
Now, if you don't want the hassle of having to manually change your service address, Starlink's Roam plan is kind of the most flexible option all around. Now, this plan is $165 a month for unlimited data, or you can pay $50 a month for 50 gigabytes of data. That is a capped plan, so you 50 gigabytes and then you're disconnected, and then you could opt in to buy additional gigabytes for $1 a gigabyte. So if you've got less demanding needs, that's a great way, a very affordable way to get Starlink.
Or a great backup option to other options.
Yes. And then These plans now, they are running at the best effort service level. So the roam plans are below the standard and residential customers. They are way below priority. So you are much more subject to congestion. So if you're in an area with a lot of people or a lot of Starlink demand, you could potentially have, some people often report during prime times, unusably slow speeds. So you do have to keep this in mind with the roam plan, is that you are at the lowest tier on Starlink's network. A lot of places you'll be performing great, but not guaranteed. You are at the bottom of the totem pole. These plans work anywhere on land in countries that Starlink has a license to operate. So you can take this plan anywhere in your home country, anywhere internationally on land, and travel with it. And that works great. It's super flexible to take it with you. You don't have to change your address. You just turn on your Starlink or keep it on and you are connected. And these plans even work in motion in speeds up to 100 miles per hour. So you can keep connected while you're cruising down the waterways or driving down the freeway, as long as you're not going too fast over the speed limit. The
Passengers only.
Yes, then only the passengers should be streaming video there. Now, when it comes to using these plans on the water, they work on what SpaceX is calling coastal waters. So they define that as up to 12 nautical miles offshore. You can travel with this plan and get connected, but they have some new terms around how long you could be in coastal waters, of just 5 consecutive days and 60 days per calendar year, or they will cut you off. So exactly how that terms are going to be enforced or how those restrictions are going to apply are still subject to be seen, because those terms are brand new. But if you're planning to use Starlink on the waterways, the definition of what is coastal from SpaceX is still not very clear. How close to shore you can be and have it count as land or coastal. This new in-between space is new for them. As far as using this plan out on the ocean, it is not intended for that, but you can still, for the time being, opt in to buy priority data. So you can pay $2 a gigabyte, flip a switch on your Starlink dashboard, and pay $2 a gigabyte to get priority data that works out on the open ocean further than 12 nautical miles from shore. And that also gives you higher priority on the network. So if you're dealing with congestion or crowded areas, you can flip that switch and get that access to higher performance tiers. Now, SpaceX has said that sometime in 2025, that feature is going to go away or be changed. So definitely pay attention to whether that mobile priority opt-in is still there or not, because they have indicated that that might be disappearing from the roam plans.
On this plan, international use is supposed to be restricted to just 2 months per trip,
Yes.
which means they expect you to return to your home country and then use it again if you go internationally. We have not seen enforcement of this yet, but that could be coming as well with Starlink. Now, the other plan option is called Mobile Priority, and this was the one that they market specifically to ocean cruisers. And the difference with this plan is it starts at $250 per month and includes 50 gigabytes of that mobile priority data that you can use in the open ocean, or for if you need it in speeds of excess of 100 miles per hour, so like aviation usage.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, this plan includes that 50 gigabytes, and if you need to use more than 50 gigabytes, you can opt in at an additional $2 per gigabyte. And this is the plan that they've said they want to transition all oceanic cruisers to, instead of that opt-in on the roam plan. So be prepared that you may be forced into this plan if those are your use cases. Now, the downside of this plan is that 50 gigabytes is use first. So let's say you're at a nice marina on the coast waiting for a weather window and you stream Netflix before you leave. You might have used all 50 gigabytes and then now you're having to opt into data when you get out on ocean for priority data. Otherwise, once you have exhausted that data plan, it kind of reverts to being the roam plan. So you're going to get unlimited usage when you are in coastal areas.
But lower priority.
And lower priority service. Also, on the international use on this one, the terms of service are a little bit confusing. It's not clear if you get unlimited international use, global use with this one, or if it is restricted to that 2 months at a time. So that remains to be seen how Starlink handles this plan.
But so far, they have not been enforcing people having to return to their home country or change their service address to a new country with this plan. So that is the one, if you are going out global cruising, it's the way to go. And they do have other tiers of it, so you can pay $1,000 a month for a terabyte of data if you need that, and on up. So it gets very expensive to have a lot of mobile priority data, but if you have the budget for it, that is kind of an option there.
So which plan should you go with? Well, for most of our audience, we recommend looking at the residential plan if you're not going to be leaving your home country and or you don't need in-motion usage, you don't mind that address changes. You're going to get a cheaper price and higher priority data. The Roam plan is great for flexibility and is great for land-based nomads and maybe even coastal cruisers, depending upon how they enforce terms. Only go to mobile priority if you absolutely need to, or they force to that. We find the Roam plan and opting in at $2 per gigabyte for mobile priority data to be a more flexible option for most.
Now, speaking of flexible, all Starlink plans, and you can change between plans as desired. So don't feel like you're locking in forever to any of these terms, and that you can adjust as your travel and needs change. You could switch from the residential to mobile priority, and vice versa. When you switch to a more expensive plan, the change is immediate. When you switch to a less expensive plan, that will go into effect at your next billing cycle. So you do have some flexibility to adjust as your needs change to try and keep your costs under control.
Now, all of the plans work with all of the equipment options that we'll be covering in the next video. However, Starlink does regularly change around which one you can actually activate service on with your equipment of choice. You might have to pay the first month at the plan that they recommend and then switch the second month. Also, there's pausing. On the Roam and mobile priority plan, they have a feature called pause where you can just pause service and reactivate. This is done on a month-to-month basis. It's not prorated. Yeah. It's really no different than just canceling your service and reactivating. It's just
slightly more convenient.
Just slightly more convenient. So don't get too fixated on that pause service being a deciding factor between residential and Roam plans.
Yeah, it would only matter really if it was prorated by the day. That would be super useful, yes. But that's not how it works. A lot of people get confused.
All right. So if you need more information on the data plans, do follow up with our guide at rvmobileinternet.com/Starlink. Stay tuned for our next video, which will be going over the different equipment choices that you have when choosing Starlink. These videos are brought to you by our premium members, our mobile internet aficionados. They make it possible for us to track this news and create these videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, or better yet, consider becoming a member yourself.